Gary Thomas is a best-selling author and international speaker, known for his ability to think outside the box. Gary's latest book identifies a missing piece and describes the one word that changes everything for your marriage, the word cherish. Gary, welcome to 100 Ollie Street.
Thank you, Rob. Great to be back.
You know, Gary, I will confess, I'm a minister. I have attended many weddings, performed many weddings. And in those weddings, you always focus upon certain words. But I will admit, when you get the couple, and you've said it, and I've said it, we've all said it, to repeat after you, to love, honor, and cherish till death do us part. We remember love, we remember honor, but the word cherish, you believe that word can revolutionize a marriage. Now, as a husband, help me, Gary, understand, what does the word cherish mean?
Well, like you, I hid behind love for a couple decades in my marriage. I've been married over 30 years now, and I've married many couples as a pastor. And so I'd always talk about love. And often at the weddings, we would use 1 Corinthians 13, where you showcase what it means to love. But love talks about perseverance, commitment, hanging in there, service, and sacrifice. That's the bedrock of marriage, and I think it's good that we emphasize it. But cherish calls me to a higher level as a husband. It's about adoring my wife. It's about having a certain attitude. It's about putting her above all others and delighting in her. And I think that's the real difference, that love is about sacrifice, service, and commitment, and cherish is about delighting and adoring and enjoying.
Now, so love and cherish, which, if some people think, well, shouldn't love be higher than cherish? Shouldn't we really focus on the love and the cherish will come?
Now, you can love without cherishing. You can't cherish without loving. Without love, cherish won't last. It would be like an infatuation. You try for a while, it's too difficult, you give up. But without cherish, and this is where I think so many married couples stop and where their marriages suffer accordingly. Without cherish, love becomes a duty instead of delight. It becomes a discipline instead of something that you truly enjoy. And the real difference, if you look at 1 Corinthians 13 that celebrates love, and you look at the Song of Songs that really celebrates cherishing, you get that whole different sense. Love doesn't boast. Cherishing boasts boldly and loudly. And so love can honor, but cherishing celebrates and enjoys. There's a huge difference. And I think that's what every spouse wants. I don't know a wife who didn't dream when she thought of what it meant to be a wife, that cherish wasn't a part of that. But so often as guys, we just stop, well, I love her, I provide for her, I'm not cheating on her, I won't leave her. That's the bottom line. It's not the level of marriage that we promised our wives we do. We promised that we would cherish them.
So as a guy, as a husband, how do I cherish my spouse?
Well, I think first we have to accept it's what we promised we would do in our marriage vows. I promised to love, honor, and cherish. Second, we have to adopt a mindset. I talk about what it is for wives to look at their husbands as Adam and husbands to look at their wives as Eve, the only man or woman in the world. That means there's no comparison. There's a very powerful verse in Song of Songs, chapter 6, verse 9, where the husband calls his wife, my dove, my only one is the perfect one. And so he's got this sense where she is not just my delight, but she's the only one. There's no one even to compare her to. And once I follow through on the promise and I have this mindset that she is the only one that I will look at that way, then there are a number of practices the book goes into about showcasing our wife, about how we build up our hearts, how we build up our minds to actually set in motion the idea of what it means to cherish each other.
Now, I am going to be held accountable for this, for my wife. But, you know, you mentioned something, showcasing your spouse.
Yes.
And you also mentioned in the book, make the beautiful more beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, when I've heard you talk about that, and when I've read about that, my first reaction is, should I be thinking that? Is it right to think that?
Yeah.
Yes, no?
Absolutely is. It comes from the dance community, actually from the ballet. George Balanchine is a famous Russian-born choreographer. And he had this phrase where he said, the ballet is woman. And by that he meant the most successful male dancers recognize their job is to showcase the ballerina. That's what people go to the dance to see. It's her beauty and her grace and her athleticism that they want to see. And so he's not trying to step in front of her and show his muscles or his moves. He's just knowing that if I can support her, she can do more with me behind her than she possibly can on her own. So it's not sentimental. He has to know the ballerina's weaknesses because this is where she needs to be supported. Not to cut her down, not to make her feel less valuable, but so that she can have the confidence to do moves she couldn't do without him then. And then he has to know the excellent parts of her strengths so that he can showcase those. He can show her off to the crowd. And my thought is if we would just have that attitude toward marriage, husbands toward wives, but also wives toward husbands, where if I know their strengths, it's only to support them. So if I know their weaknesses, rather, it's only to support them so those weaknesses don't pull them down. But I also want to know their strengths to help others see them. So I'm literally showing off my spouse to others. And Rob, since I've been doing that, it just changes my heart toward my spouse. It changes the goals I have for my marriage. Not only do I want to cherish my wife, I want others to cherish my wife. I want others to see her excellence. It's just a completely new mindset looking at marriage every day through that light.
Now, you mentioned your wife and how she responds to that.
Yes.
So from a man, husband, treating his wife that way in a cherished moment, am I safe to say it opens her up more? That we can enjoy the love that God intended for us?
Absolutely, it does. In fact, I have a whole chapter on Ezekiel chapter 16 where God cherished Jerusalem. You know, we think of Jerusalem as this famous city, but there was a time in history when Jerusalem didn't even exist. It was nothing, and the Bible pictures it in Ezekiel as a child abandoned, left to die. But God said to that child, live. The child became of marriage age. God married Jerusalem. He indulged her, he spoiled her, he clothed her well, he fed her well. And then we're told in Lamentations 2:15 that she became the perfection of beauty, the joy of the whole earth. And so you have this city, God's bride, if you will, once abandoned. Nobody thought she was fit to live, cherished by her husband, and now she's a ruling queen. Because cherishing released those gifts and helped others to see just what she could be. And that's what I love about Cherish. It's not just a promise, it's a strategy.
Right.
It releases our spouse to become the people that God created them to be. And you mentioned earlier, to make the beautiful yet more beautiful. That's another George Balanchine quote, where he said that's his job as a choreographer, is to take beautiful people and to make them yet more beautiful. And that's the goal of a cherishing marriage. You take somebody you cherish, you take somebody that you see as beautiful, and you help others see that they're even more beautiful than they realize.
Gary, people may be watching and they may think they've kind of gone too far down the road, a couple.
Yeah.
Is it possible to reset that cherish button?
I believe it can. I've seen it happen in so many marriages. Now, there's certain situations, let me just say, Cherish was not written for women who are being abused. This is for marriages that can be improved, that need to be built, not marriages that a woman needs to escape from. But I think if it's facing the normal doldrums, if there's just apathy, or if they just sort of grown distant from each other, cherishing is an effective strategy, and it's a new goal. Because so often we say, well, I'm loving her or I'm loving him, I'm not leaving them, I'm not cheating on them. But cherishing says, you know what, we can take the next step. We can have a new marriage. And just by that mindset, Rob, I'll say this, because I've been writing on marriage and speaking on it for 2 decades now. But right before Cherish came out, when I've been practicing this for a number of years, I'm very much a morning person. My wife very much isn't. And I'll never forget, I was in my study and I heard my wife moving around. I realized she was awake. And the best way to describe it is my heart leapt. Because my favorite person in the world, this woman I've learned to cherish, was awake. And I knew in a few minutes she would come into my office and I'd give her a little hug. And she'd share a few words and then she'd go out for her beloved coffee. But I felt convicted to cherish because I'd promised my wife I'd do that. And I felt convicted to cherish because I thought God convicted me that I needed to cherish. What I didn't realize is how delightful it is to live with a woman you cherish. I did it out of obedience. And to me, it's given me great delight to learn to cherish my spouse. It just makes sense. Life is much better when you delight and cherish the person you're married to.
You know, we've only got a real brief 30 seconds left, but
okay.
Sort of taking from what you said, and in your book you talk about bidding for attention.
Yes.
And that really hit home to me. And I know we could talk a whole interview about it, but just real quickly, bidding for attention, what do you mean by that when you're writing your book?
Husbands have to bury forever that phrase, give me the Reader's Digest version. All right, that's love. Okay, I'll be here because I have to be. Cherishing is tell me more, maintaining our curiosity, because it's not about what our wives are saying, it's about who is saying it. And a wife who doesn't feel like she has a curious husband isn't a wife who feels cherished. And that's what I want to do through this book. I want wives to feel cherished. I want husbands to feel cherished. I want to raise the bar for what we expect out of our marriages so that together we could say, we can do more. We can give our marriage a new focus if we learn not just to love, but to cherish each other.
Gary, thank you so much. I really appreciate what you've said. And honestly, in reading your book, there were so many different points that hit home to me. And like I said, I'm going to be accountable to this with my wife. But, you know, the bidding for attention, again, just to mention that, I've been guilty of it. I'm sure many people are. And it's one of the areas in the book that when I studied it and began to reflect on it, I began to think a little differently. And I can honestly say I've been catching myself not to do that. And so thoroughly enjoyed it. And I just want to encourage our audience. You can get Gary's book, Cherish, by going to our Crossroads e-store. And once again, thank you so much, Gary. Really appreciate what you've had to say. And folks, the Lord is gracious and good. No one has gone too far. And so there is a way and a means for you to return to that love, but also the ability to cherish in your relationship. Gary, thank you again so much.